Hello, good day everyone. I am April Jane B. Halap and I'm going to continue the report of Unit 3 Educational Facilities for Basic Education. So, our first part was actually reported by Ma'am Christine, and I'm going to continue the other topics. So, for my report, we are going to tackle thermal comfort, visual comfort, acoustical comfort, color, disaster risk reduction measures, and hazard specific reduction measures. Okay, so let's continue. So, thermal comfort. So, to be thermally comfortable, the internal climate in the school shall be cool, pleasant, and satisfying. Of course, in the learning environment, it is really important for to make the students or even us teachers to be comfortable. If it last time most of our class hours was actually suspended, especially those who were in the DepEd or in the public schools. So last time there were no class, only modules. It's because of it's too hot in our country at that time, because as we all know, because of COVID-19, our class schedules or the whole school year was um na lahi ang schedule, right? So, na timingan or nga it was summer during the time, 'di ba? That's why there's a lot of suspension of classes because it's too hot, and a lot of students were nahimatay or na faint, right? So, it is not comfortable. So, it should be thermally comfortable for all the learners. So, thermal comfort in the school is obtained either by artificial means. So, these are like electric fan, air conditioner, or etc. Or by natural ventilation. Okay, so the thermal comfort by natural ventilation may be obtained in the following ways. First, proper orientation of school buildings. So, why is it needs to be properly oriented? The school building should be properly oriented. It is to minimize solar heat loads. That is, building ends shall face approximately the east-west direction, and its long sides along the north-south direction to avoid direct sunlight. So we are aiming for natural ventilation here, so we should avoid direct sunlight. So second one is designing school buildings with wide overhanging eaves. So why is it that it is important to provide shade and promote air motion inside the building. So of course, to thermally comfortable, we need air so that it's not too hot, especially that in our country it is a tropical country, so mostly it's too hot in our country, so we need a proper motion of air. So third one is keeping buildings as narrow as possible. Why is that? So that breezes can blow through the rooms easily from one side of the building to the other. Okay, so fourth one is providing adequate fenestration in order to allow the maximum amount of wind to blow through the building. So the air is really important in making building, or in order for the school, or in order for the learning environment to be thermally comfortable. Okay, the fifth one is, of course, planting trees with a large foliage mass along the sides of the building to promote air motion inside the building. So distance of the trees from the building shall be specified, so not too close to affect air circulation, or nor later on to destroy the building foundation by the roots. Of course, natural ventilation should be preferred as recommended by the Philippine Green Building Council, or PhilGBC, and active solutions such as electric fans or air conditioning unit should only be backup solutions. So in making or constructing a building, we the first thing that we should consider is, of course, the natural ventilation to be thermally comfortable. So now, minimum and maximum indoor temperature range as well as humidity range needs to be specified to include maximum allowed degrees deviation of building from east to west direction, length of overhang in relation to bottom of window sill when the sun is at its lowest angle to the south on June 21 and when the sun is at lowest angle to the north on December 21. So this vary depending on the site's latitude bearing. Maximum width space of buildings define minimum distance requirement between buildings. And 2. Minimum and maximum percent ratio of vegetation to wall area. Specify minimum distance of trees from the building. So those are the things that we need to remember in constructing a building to make our to make the people, the students, the staff, and the teachers to be thermally comfortable. Now let's proceed to visual comfort in educational facilities. So visual comfort in school indicated when pupils or students and teachers can carry on classroom work without unnecessarily straining their eyes or experiencing visual discomfort. So, good lighting, whether by natural daylight or artificial light, is characterized by the quantity and quality of illumination. So, of course, in a learning environment, our eyes or um, our visual comfort is really necessary. So because as a teacher, even us, right, we wanted nga dili gubot or dili kanang ngit-ngit kaayo ang atong classroom. So uh in order for us to visually comfortable, the quantity of light in a classroom depends on the following condition. So first one is natural illumination. So it's uh it depends on the design and the size of the windows. Second is condition of the classroom, so as it to the paint and the size of the classroom. And then third one is types of the building. So if it is one story ba siya or two story, and climate condition, diba? Is, we actually have experienced it if it's more kaulanon na, so more mungit-ngit ato ang classroom, or if ever nga it muhapon na kayo siya ayos, diba, mungit-ngit ato ang classroom. And then the fifth condition is ceiling height. So there are actually ways po to achieve visual comfort in school by natural light. So one thing here is to have a proper orientation of the school building, same as the thermal comfort. And then making our classroom windows wide, low ceiled, and high top to ensure maximum daylight illumination, and using proper combination of the colors, of course, because uh, to make the classroom bright, it also affects the paint that we use, just like what I've said earlier na about the condition of the classroom. Okay, so natural daylighting shall be preferred as recommended by the Philippine Green Building Council. And artificial daylighting is only back up for cloudy or overcast sky condition. So that's why if it is somehow nga kanang ngit atong classroom, it's because of kaulanon, or if it's too hapon na, so we use light bulbs, right, to to make our classroom brighter, and of course in order for our students to see uh, the necessary things. And visual comfort by natural light may be achieved by specifying minimum and maximum height ratio to floor area depth. Okay, so that's it for visual comfort. Now let's proceed to acoustical comfort. A good environment for acoustical comfort in school requires that noise be controlled to proper levels so that every child in the class can hear clearly what is being spoken by the teacher above all other sounds inside and outside a classroom. Of course, aside from the thermal comfort, visual comfort, about the brightness, the acoustical comfort is really needed, because in order for us to learn, we need to listen to our teacher, right? Even us, we need to listen to the people who actually talking in order for us to learn. And in a classroom, a lot of sources of sounds. Daghang sources of sounds nga atong madunggan. And what are the sources usually in the classroom? So the sounds that a pupil or student hears simultaneously inside the classroom usually comes from four sources. First one is the voice of his own or her own teacher. Of course, um, one thing one thing that is really important is the voice of the teacher, because our teachers are our teacher. So you get me, right? So second one is background sounds in the classroom. Okay, such as chair scrapping, sounds of movement from nearby children. So especially if imong tudloan is mga elementary or somehow grade 7, grade 8 na they are really so lihok kaayo, so magkuabira-bira og kuan, so it would disturb, right? It would disturb, and it makes sound. So it will be, sakit ka sa dalunggan. So it will be acoustical discomfort na siya. So third one is intrusive sounds from adjoining classrooms, such as voices of other teachers and pupil students, sounds of activities of the children, so and etc. So those are intrusive sounds from adjoining classrooms. And then fourth one is external sounds from outside the building, such as vehicles, airplanes, birds chirping, dog barking, and etc. So these are the things, or these are the sources that we usually hear in a classroom. And the external sounds from outside the building, I actually experienced this last time when I was teaching college in my old school. So it's because the classroom that I was teaching is nearby by a dorm. So there are a lot of noises, external noises, especially the sound of the music sa dorm, or like, yeah, kanang mga dool pa gyud ang school sa highway, so somehow na mga kuan sa mga busina sa mga cars or sa mga vehicles ng mga sounds. So those are the sources of sound. And now, there are ways of achieving acoustic comfort. So what are this? So acoustic comfort in school may be achieved by first locating the school in a quiet neighborhood. So this is really important, especially if we are trying to build schools in the near future. So we should what do you call that? We should know if this neighborhood is quiet ba siya or dili ba siya, because it would affect the learning of the students. And then second one is locating the school building at a reasonable distance from the street. Okay, so this is one thing also to remember. So reasonable distance from the street. And then proper zoning of the school site to separate noisy areas from those where silent is required. Okay, so proper zoning of the school site to separate the noisy areas. And then grouping buildings according to function, so that academic buildings where silence is required are located at a reasonable distance from shop, home economics, and other buildings where noisy activities takes place normally. So one thing, I've actually encountered this one, because I am a Bansai graduate, or BNSHI graduate, and I noticed also that katong mga repair shops or somehow mga welding sa Bansai is layo gid siya sa mga academic nga mga classrooms gid, nga kay kato kay practical man siya, diba, like magluto-luto or unsa mang dito nga side jud sila is uban na sila kay magluto-luto, then adi uban diri nga mag kanang for welding for ana. So lahi gud siya, separate gud siya sa from academic buildings gud nga wherein the teacher would be talking and then sila is practical. So lahi gud siya. So I actually um observed this sa Bansay. So good thing. And now, desirable oral environment. So inside the classroom, the desirable oral environment may be provided as follows. First is arranging the seats in such a way that no pupil is more than 7 meters away from the teacher standing in front of their room. And then second is where classrooms both face a common position, back to back on either side. Partition shall be up the ceiling, if possible, double walled to avoid the noise from disturbing any of the classrooms. So that is for acoustical comfort. Now let's proceed to color. So I think I don't need to really uh explain what is color because we already know it. So let's proceed to the importance of color. So the application of color of paint on educational facilities is designed first. What is the first importance? To contribute to visual comfort. Of course, it is part of light, color, and raise the illumination levels, effect proper contrast, and eliminate glare. So this is just like what I've said earlier from the visual comfort. It is really important to use combinations nga that is not or combinations, I mean the paint combinations that is not really sakit kaya sa mata. So we should really use mga light colors lang. So that's why you observe that in many schools nga mostly ang paint sa schools good sa ilang classroom is just off-white, off-white or white. So light in order for our students to be visually comfortable. And then the second importance is for aesthetic effect. Of course, we use colors to make uh, our classroom very beautiful, and yeah, so para visually gyapon siya, for visually comfort gyapon siya. And then to preserve and protect materials. So as I have learned also nga para dugay magguba ang koan mga bangko or kanang mga lamisa, we painted it, right? We paint those materials for to protect the materials. And then for safety precautions. So in each colors there are actually meanings, right? uh okay, so these are the guidelines on the use of color. So the following guidelines on the use of color are suggested. So first, the color scheme shall be practical and in good taste. So garish colors or a riot of colors shall be avoided. Katong mga sakit kay sa mata. So in classroom, second one, in classroom where pupils' concentration is desired, the use of varied strong colors, especially within eye level of the children, shall be avoided because of their distracting effect. So ceilings shall be painted in off-white flat paint with a reluctant factor of 85%. Walls shall be painted in light colors with the upper portion in lighter color with a reflection factor of 60%. Then the lower portion which shall have a reflection factor of 40%. Okay, so floors shall be gray or blue-gray since these colors give color effect and show marks less than dark colors. So the reluctant factor of floors shall be from 30% to 40%. So there's another is there shall be a slight contrast in color between the chalkboard and the wall on which it is installed. Areas of bright, distracting colors near the chalkboard shall be avoided. Okay. Next is the color of the chalkboard shall provide a much stronger contrast with chalk used on it and give a reflectance factor from 20% to 25%. Trims or frames may be painted in light color such as white or off-white to contrast with the wall and shall have a reflectorant factor of 40% to 60%. And proper combination of color shall be used to highlight or emphasize elevation changes, obstructions, stairways, and etc. So those are the following guidelines on the use of color. Now let's proceed to the color scheme adopted by DepEd. So here under, so if you can see the table, is the standard color scheme being adopted by DepEd in its school building. We all know the color scheme of DepEd, right? Because we can see it all throughout nga ganahan din sila green. So the color and roofing and accessories, the DepEd green, the door DepEd QDE Palmyra green, the columns nila DepEd latex beige, DepEd SG enamel beige, and then exterior wall DepEd latex beige, DepEd SG enamel beige, and then the interior wall mga beige, and then the ceiling is flat white or flat wall DepEd flat wall enamel. So I don't think I need to properly discuss that because we can actually see it. So so ang more signature color yun sa DepEd is green, and then the beige is to this is also to to from what I have learned in some, that green is a good color when it comes uh to our eyes, 'di ba? That's why ang nature is green. So if ever nga we somehow sakit atong mata, so we look at green mga green nga color. So maybe that's the reason of the ped why is it nga green ilahang kuan gi-adapt as a color in their buildings. 'Di ba kana sa mga senior high school nung bag-o nga mga kanang bag-o nga mga constructed nga mga buildings sa senior high school. So mostly 'di ba kay mga green yun sila and then beige dayon ang color sa mga kanang classroom sa mga columns nila. Okay, so just like what I've said earlier, nga there are actually ang colors is somehow precautions pod. So the safety color scheme. So let's proceed to the safety color scheme. So the following safety color scheme is universally recognized. So ang red denotes fire hazards or firefighting equipment such as alarm boxes, fire pails, and fire extinguisher, and etc. So even as if makakita tag red nga mga somehow, uy, wait lang, kay murag hazard ano ni something, 'di ba? Or fire hazard ni siya. So green signifies safely or a go ahead signal. So especially mo magid ni ang kuan, mo ginang sa traffic, 'di ba nga, oh, green na, so oh, go. So pwede siya, safe siya. And then third one is orange. So orange is used to indicate alert or danger from equipment. So 'di ba? Orange, if makita na tong orange, oh, delicades ni siya. Delicades. Delikado ni siya. Okay, ang white is serve as a traffic line or guide. So, 'di ba? Yellow, when it comes to yellow, it is high visibility, is used to warn danger from stumbling, failing, or striking, and is usually with alternate bands of a dark color. So, munang kita na to kasi yellow din, black dayon, di ba siya? So then blue indicates precaution and is used on switch boxes, levers, and etc. Yeah. If in constructing building, colors are really important or paints are really important. So we really need to use the colors that is comfortable when it comes to the eyes of our students and the people inside the building. So just like I've said earlier nga, there are meanings sa mga each nga colors, just like what I've discussed earlier. Okay, so that's it for the color. Okay, so let's proceed to disaster risk reduction measures. So every teacher or school official should recognize that the welfare of the pupils or the students in school is his or her first and foremost concern and responsibility. So, educational facilities program should include adequate provisions for ensuring safety in school against natural and man-made hazards. So, children are taught disaster risk reduction measures in school as part of the elementary and secondary school curricula. The objective is to foster awareness and better understanding about the immediate environment in which children and their families live. So the basic education curriculum used in formal educational prescribed disaster risk reduction learning competencies required of every child to learn before passing the basic education. So these have become the basis for the preparation of learning exemplars or lessons plans to be used by teachers in teaching disaster risk reduction concept to school children. Since school buildings are used as venues where teaching learning activities takes place, then school buildings need to be safe. That's why if you observe, we actually have like earthquake drills, right? In order for our students to learn how to survive or how to save themselves. And of course, if our school is the training ground, then our school should be safe. Under this, we are going to discuss the following. First is how to make schools safe, and then we're going to discuss green schools. Okay. Okay, so under how to make schools safe, we're going to discuss three parts: roles of stakeholders, and then the proper location of the school site, and then environment. So, what are the roles of stakeholders? So, let's proceed to the government. So the national government should commit the training of teachers and development of curriculum to support large-scale teaching of disaster risk reduction. So the main role here of the government is to give proper trainings of the teachers in order for the teachers to develop skills or knowledge in order for them to teach disaster risk reduction. So experiences from other countries prove that review of existing construction guidelines and development of a comprehensive policy towards school safety are important measures to achieve safety in schools. So also the government is the one who develop building designs to ensure the safeness of the students. So that is the responsibility or the role of the government. Now let's proceed to UN and other international or local organizations. So the United Nations and other international organizations have vital roles to make schools safe for the school children. Through the education in emergencies, the education cluster proved to be quick win solution for the government to improve humanitarian assistance to affected populations during emergencies. So these are done through coalitions and partnerships with member organizations, which facilitated the creation of knowledge networks, exchange of data, experiences, and resources, building capacities and guiding the Department of Education and tapping and mobilizing resources where these are most needed. So we're done with the UN and other international local organization. Now let's proceed to educators and professionals. So this is our role, teachers. So the loss of life, injury, and disruption of education and normal child and adolescent development caused by both natural and human-induced hazards are indications that more professionals and educators should seek out more direct and rapid ways to assist in raising the level of awareness of parents, policymakers, community leaders, and the children and the youth on how to respond properly to hazard. So our role here is to impart knowledge which is important to sustainable human development, peace, justice, and safety. So our role here as educators is to, of course, educate students or impart knowledge which are important to sustainable human development, peace, justice, and safety. Okay, so Next one is communities and schools. So what is the roles here, or the role here of communities and schools? So communities and schools have the most important roles in ensuring safety of every individual. So each entity can influence to a certain extent, even beyond traditional forms of regional development, from cultural to economical, informational, and environmental. So recognizing these roles, each entity needs to strive to improve the quality of educational facilities. So, as a community, as a whole, we are really, or each of us is in need to improve the quality of educational facilities. So, capacity building of human resources and securing financial basis to provide adequate education facilities must be considered in the process of formulating education policy. So, experiences in developing countries like our own, Philippines, indicated that the basic problems related to disaster mitigation and preparedness can be attributed to the lack of capacity, awareness, education, and self-reliance within the communities. So, educated and self-trained communities are much more capable of coping successfully and reducing impacts of natural disasters. So, that is why, as a whole, as a community, we need to be prepared, especially if there are natural disasters or human-made disasters. Okay, now let's proceed to parents. So parents can influence decision making of school administrator and school administrators in keeping schools safe through the Parent Teachers and Community Association, or PTCA. So parents are very active in providing their time, resources, and efforts to make schools ready for opening of the classes on a voluntary basis. So during PTCA meetings, you learn about safety and hazards. So this is a discussion focused on awareness of hazards and how the children in schools may be protected. So that is why, if you're a parent, of course, you have a great role when it comes to making your students or making your children to be safe. That is why schools, parents, or schools or family should work together, especially through the safeness, or to make the students safe. Now, of course, if we are somehow wanted to make the children safe, they themselves should know also their role. So child participation is a very significant factor in disaster risk reduction. First, the activities being undertaken will directly benefit them through the realization of their basic rights. This is also based on the premise that today's children are tomorrow's adult citizens. So what they learn about safety today significantly contributes towards the development of disaster risk resilient communities. So those are the roles of stakeholders. Now let's proceed to the proper location of school site. So the National Building Code of the Philippines 2005 requires that the school sites be located in safe, sanitary, and hygienic areas away from sources of pollution, fire, explosion, and bodies of water. So it was actually stated in Chapter 1, Section 105 of the National Building Code of the Philippines. It requires that the land or the site upon which will be constructed any building or structure, or any ancillary or auxiliary facility thereto, shall be sanitary, hygienic, or safe. For school sites which are intended for formal education, where children spend most of their time, the same shall be at a safe distance, as determined by competent authorities, free from streams or bodies of water and or sources of air considered to be polluted, far from a volcano or volcanic site, and or any other building considered to be potential source of fire or explosion. So this is of course to protect the learners, to make them safe. So that should be the environment of the buildings where students learn. So And also, accordance to the chapter 2 of the manual hazard assessment of the manual, hazard assessment and school mapping should be conducted to identify the appropriate location for schools, considering their vulnerability to various natural hazards such as geological and hydrometeorological hazards. So, a multi-hazard approach should be used in decision making when selecting school sites to ensure the safety and well-being of students and staff. So, if the site is near a known active fault, school buildings must strictly follow standard engineering technical specifications to withstand extreme ground shaking. And areas on step slopes identified to be potentially landslides should obviously be avoided. So as mentioned, site location shall also consider all possible hazards and multi-hazard approach in decision making shall be used. So so we promote here a safe school, right? So the school site or the where the school will be constructed, so it should be safe and away from any hazard, all possible hazards. So that is for the proper location of school site. Now let's proceed to the environment. So to cope with constant climate change and intensity to its effect to the occupants of any school structure, the Philippine Green Building Council or PhilGBC recommends the establishment of a green school. So what is this green school? So we're going to tackle it in the next topic. So a green school, it is a school building or facility that creates a healthy environment that is conducive to teaching learning while saving energy, resources, and money. So a large percentage of Filipinos go to school every day, right? And too many of the students and teachers attend schools that are not structurally sound, miss important opportunities to reduce operational cost, foster learning, and protect students' health. So public and private schools, both here and abroad, are now realizing that going green is cost effective. What are actually the benefits of green schools here? So there are actually 5 benefits that we can get if we make our schools green. So first is healthy place to learn. So far too often schools in the Philippines are built following the National Building Code, and we send children go to school and spend many hours a day in facilities that just barely meet health and safety standards. So this situation must change. So every child deserves to go to school with healthy air to breathe and conditions that encourage learning. So green schools are healthy for children and conducive to their education since this encourage first daylight and views to improve performance. Second, high indoor air quality to improve health. Third one, excellent acoustics to increase learning potential. And thermal comfort to increase occupant satisfaction. And the second benefit is healthy places to teach. Of course, if it is a healthy places to learn, then of course, it is also healthy places to teach. No, green schools are not just good for children. Excellent indoor air quality means improved health for everyone. So teachers deserve, of course, healthy spaces for teaching school children. Good acoustics in classrooms ensure that teachers can be heard without straining their voices, because this is really important to teachers, 'di ba? If it is too noisy, hala, grabe din kayo, syagit na dayon ang mga teachers with each at the putong mga memes dito sa Facebook nga Monday, o kusog pa kay tingog ganyan, up to Friday wala na siya tingog, 'di ba? So this green school is actually um good for teachers so that they can be heard and without straining their voice. So studies also show that all building occupants benefit from daylight and access to views, and research indicates that teachers are happier when they have the ability to control the environment. And happy teachers save our schools money. So green schools commonly report reduction in teacher absenteeism and teacher turnover, resulting to a huge savings of the school. So um, if we make our school green, then of course it would really give benefits to the children, to the students, and to our teachers, of course. Now, third one is save money. So, greening existing schools will not only save money but can potentially pay for itself. One of the requirements for achieving the physical attributes of a green building deals with building renewal, such as repairing, upgrading, and replacing system. So, such activities generally result in lower utility cost. Any project that can generate savings possesses a unique opportunity to include and pay for a broad range of sustainable initiatives. Moreover, the reduction in utility cost from renewal efforts may be able to pay for the entire greening project. Okay, as hands-on learning. As we all know, students learn best when they are engaged and inspired. So imagine the learning potential when the school building itself becomes an interactive teaching tool, educating the next generation of sustainable leaders through hands-on learning. So, a hands-on learning, 'di ba? And as we are doing from a very long time naman ata nga kanang even katong elementary pa ko ginahimo na nami ni actually kanang magtanom og kuan kanang vegetables, 'di ba? Maghimo ta garden gina-implement naman nato ni ang uban. So it is a hands-on learning. So mga pupils nato sila gyud ang magkuan na as well as sila ang nagtanom maka-learn pud sila nga these are uh, good for their health, 'di ba? So hands-on learning. So this is the green school experience. So the school building is no longer a vessel filled with students, teacher and books, but itself an opportunity for experiential learning and discovery. And last one, lessons environment impact. So green schools do more good by doing less bad. So they save more money, so they save more energy and use less water than traditional school buildings. Additionally, green school lessen environmental impacts through responsible approaches to site, reduce demand on municipal infrastructure, and recycling during and after construction. So like other green buildings, green schools decrease our reliance on fossil fuels, thus decreasing carbon dioxide emissions and other forms of harmful pollution. So green schools can help turn back the clock on climate change, improving the environmental outlook for the children who will be one day be faced with the challenge of finding resolutions to this problem. So, of course, as we have or we already implemented in the schools to make it green schools, it should have also or a certification, or how will we able to know if our school is already a green school? So, the Birdie or Building for Ecological Responsive Design Excellence. So this is actually it is a voluntary green building rating system established by Philippine Green Building Council. So Birdie or Birdie certification is I mean, if in order for us to know if our school is a green school already, then we need to apply for Birdie certification. So, Birdie, again, Building for Ecological Responsive Design Excellence, it is a voluntary green building rating system established by the Philippine Green Building Council or PhilBGC or PhilGBC. Okay, so Birdie aims to improve the environmental impact of buildings in the Philippines. It's launched in January 2010 by the Philippine Green Building Council to promote green building practices. So what are the benefits of this one? So enhances public health, reduces operating cost, increases marketability, boosts occupant productivity, and supports sustainable communities. So, Birdie certification recognizes environmental commitment, provides a third-party validation, qualifies for government initiatives, and offers marketing exposure. So, of course, if you are applying or somehow you already certified as a green school or your school is already certified as green school, then it would actually give you a certification, 'di ba? So if your school is already a green school, then it will be published or it will be a news to um the community. So it will be a news, so it would actually gives the school marketing exposure. So your school will be known all over the country, and then there will be a chance that your school will have a lot of students because it is a green school. A lot of people would be eventually interested to be there. So that's the good thing if you have or your school is a green school which has a BERD certification or BERD certification. Now, of course, in order for us to know if it is a certified green school, so there is actually a school building greening project checklist. So this checklist aims to create high performance schools that are healthy, comfortable, and cost effective. So it recognizes the unique needs of school design and construction, focusing on classroom acoustics, master planning, mold prevention, and environmental site assessment. So so these are the checklist. So sustainable site development, joint use of facilities, energy and atmosphere, green power, regional materials, indoor environmental quality, low emitting materials, indoor chemical and pollutant, source control, disaster risk reduction, and the school as a teaching tool. So those are the checklists. So I will not discuss it um um checklist per checklist because you can actually find this in the internet. If you want to assess your school, then this checklist is a good um um thing. Uh yeah, a good thing. So, we're at the last subtopic, hazard specific reduction measures. So, in this topic or in this subtopic, we're going to discuss a lot of things. So, the hazard specific reduction measures. So, first one is fire prevention and safety measure. Second one, provision for open spaces as temporary evacuation sites for earthquake, fire, and other emergencies. Third one is adherence to building design standards and structural soundness. Fourth, provision of water, sanitation, hygiene facilities. Fifth, road safety. Sixth, proper use of chemicals and gases in the science laboratories. Seventh, proper use of computer or laboratory room. And then eighth is school canteen. Ninth, proper garbage disposal. 10th, pergola shall be constructed. 11th, compulsory use of identification cards. 12th, waiting shed shall be constructed. Organizing a school disaster risk disaster management program. And then school disaster preparedness plan. Earthquake safety in schools. And last one will be the flood safety in schools. So let's proceed to the fire prevention and safety measures. So materials in school construction must meet fire resistant standards as per section 601 to 604 of the National Building Code of the Philippines. And school building must adhere to safe construction standards. Buildings marked with off limits by inspector cannot be used until deemed safe. And regular inspection and maintenance of electrical systems are crucial to prevent electrical fires, especially in public schools lacking in-house electricians. So these are the things that we need to consider in order for fire prevention and safety measures. Now, now for the provision for open spaces as temporary evacuation sites for earthquake, fire, and other emergencies. So school must designate open spaces within their compounds as temporary evacuation sites for emergencies like fires or earthquakes. Actually, somehow wondered why is it most of the schools have this open wide spaces. So these are actually important, no? Especially that's why if there are calamities in our country or in places within our country, schools are the evacuation centers, right? So okay, so this is actually the purpose. So school must designate open spaces within their compounds as temporary evacuation sites for emergencies. So just like fires, earthquakes, and other emergencies. Okay, so adherence to building design standards and structural soundness. So school structures must comply with engineering specification outlined in the Building Code of the Philippines and the National Construction Code, which includes guidelines for wind, load, and earthquake design. So these are the um, so this is really important if we are constructing a building, especially school buildings. We really need to have guidelines, especially guidelines that is made for the building code. Building code. Yeah. Okay, now provision of water, sanitation, and hygiene facilities. So, access to potable water is critical for health. Schools must have a reliable water system with regular inspection to ensure functionality. Schools should maintain a reserve water supply for emergencies, particularly for fire situations. So, water is really important. That is a necessity, right? So, water, especially for our students. So, we need water. So, we need to have a reliable water system. And in case of emergencies, just like fires, uh, if there is a fire situation, of course, we need a water supply for that. So, water is really important, and sanitation and hygiene, it should be clean. Let's proceed to road safety. So, to ensure the safety of school children, it is essential to separate vehicular and pedestrian routes. Use clear signage, establish pedestrian crossing with traffic aids, enforce a 20 km/h speed limit in school zones, and implement traffic calming measures like speed humps. So, if you can look at the some of the roads, or if ang road is at bang ato is or skilid ato is a school, there are actually, di ba, na yung mga traffic, uh, what do you call that, like, na yung mga signage nga dapat maghinayta. It's because a school zone. So, this is to ensure the safety of the students who are crossing and the road para padulong sa eskwelahan or pauli na. Now, proper use of chemicals and gases in science laboratories. So, science laboratories must be equipped with proper ventilation of hazardous gases, ensure the safe storage and supervision of combustible materials, label dangerous chemicals clearly, and display legible warning signs to protect students during experiments. So it should really have proper signs in orders or warning signs to protect our students during examination. Now, in designing and constructing a science laboratory, there are things that we need to remember. So first one is it should have a wide space, like 7 to 18 meters. It should have two doors, entry and exit. So door should be swing out to facilitate exit of the students in case of emergency. And third is laboratory counter. So it should have a laboratory counter, control room, and storage room. And fourth one is chemical solution should be located or kept on the base cabinets of the storage or stock room. And then fifth, stock or storage room with security grills on the windows. Sixth is neutralization tank drain pit for proper disposal of chemical waste. And then working tables to fix on the floor. It should be made of reinforced concrete with mosaic tiles, topping, and should be acid resistant. Each working table should be provided with a laboratory sink and faucet. Eight is waste pipe should be also acid resistant because there are chemicals, diba, in the laboratories. And then ninth is well lightened and have a bilateral penetration of ventilation and fume extraction. 10th should have a 24-hour clean water supply. 11th, science laboratory room should have a notice or reminder posted on conspicuous side of the room for students' awareness and shall be provided with a first aid kit. And then 12, should be allocated far from academic classrooms. Third, in case of multi-story building, the science laboratory should be located on the highest floor possible for proper ventilation. Now, guides or steps to ensure that learning in laboratory will always be safe. So these are actually 15 steps unta, but I somehow some of it are redundant na, so I summarize it into 5 steps na lang. Okay, so first step is plan and prepare. So, in order to be safe, we need the students to familiarize with the laboratory rules, chemical properties, and hazards before conducting experiments. Okay? So, second one is access control. So, it ensure only authorized personnel can access chemicals and equipment in the stock or storage room. So, katong mga kabalo jud dapat, or the teacher should be the one nga authorized only to access the chemicals and equipment in the storage room. And then third one is the emergency awareness. So no emergency procedures, including the location of first aid kits, wash areas, and exits, and inform students how to seek help. Fourth one is supervision and cleanliness. So always have a science teacher present during experiments and maintain good housekeeping to reduce accidents. Of course, during experiments in the laboratory, teachers should be there. Dili kay pasagdan ra ang mga students kay basig muboto ang laboratory. Okay, fifth one is safety equipment and training. So ensure safety equipment is available and functioning, and educate students on its use and the consequence of safety violation. So dapat iingon jud sa ilaha nga these are the laboratory rules. So when in order for them also to know the consequences nga, if violate na nimo, then this will be the so of course if they already know it, they would be afraid to do those things na curious sila. So since they already know what are the consequences, then they would stop before they doing it. Okay, so now let's proceed to the proper use of computer or laboratory room. So computer laboratory rooms are special instructional spaces designed to meet the current and future demands of modern technology. Okay, so there are recommended security and safety measures. So first one is, of course, hiring of security guard. Second one is engaging the assistant of barangay tanods. This is to ensure the security and safety measures, and fastening of each PC unit to the computer table. So this is optional. Installing fire alarms or fire extinguisher. So in order to have safety laboratory, so those 4 things are recommended. Now for public-private assistant, to sustain the package and services of the PCs, public-private assistant is encouraged as local adopt a school program through the local school board, PTCA Alumni Association, teachers co-op store or school canteen. Third one is community e-center, and then fourth one is internet cafe inside the school. Now, what are the best practices for maintaining computers? So best practices is, first one, install all updates required by the ICT office. Second one, install only licensed programs, but I think it's quite magud it's quite expensive magud ang mga licensed programs, diba? So most of us kay gamit na lang og mga crack or something ana. But that is the best practice. So best practice is we install only licensed programs. Do not install different version of software. Let ICT know when hardware is not working. Let ICT know when you need something. Because of course, if makita-kita raw niya di ta kabalo, it would somehow destroy or break the computer, diba? If you do not know how to do it. Okay, and do not download programs from internet sites you do not trust. Okay, of course, that's one thing also to remember. Be aware of suspicious emails kasi mga scam lang na. and use online support resources. So these are the best practices for maintaining computers. Now let's proceed to school canteens. So in the school canteen, only nutritious foods, drinks of non-origin shall be sold in the school canteen. And junk foods, intoxicating beverages are strictly prohibited. So, bawal gid ang mga junk foods, ang mga beverage nga maka ano ba yeah. Yeah. So only nutritious foods in order to make the students safe sa atoang school. Now, let's proceed to proper garbage disposal. So, waste segregation policy stipulated in RA number 9003 or Clean Air Act shall be followed by providing separate garbage cans for dry waste, wet waste, and hazardous toxic waste. So, mo gitong na yung mga plastic ni dere, paper ni dere, biodegradable and non-biodegradable, diba? Toxic waste, ana. So, burning of garbage shall be discouraged in compliance to the provision of said act. So, one thing also that we need to remember is kanang magsunog-sunog, diba? Magsunog-sunog kay sunog-sunog og mga ano. So, that is not a or that is discouraged in compliance pod sa katong RA number 9003 Clean Air Act. Okay, so let's proceed to pergolas shall be constructed. So pergolas shall be constructed in such a way that this shall allow the passage of big vehicles like fire trucks, dump trucks, and ambulance. So this is for safety purposes pod, 'di ba? To get the garbages, syempre agi gid ang mga dump trucks, and then if na yung mga fire emergencies, of course para makaagi pod ang fire trucks, and then if na yung mga emergencies for health like na yung kuan sa manggaling dira nga dili maayom na hitabo, of course makaagi ra pod ang ambulance. Okay, now let's proceed to compulsory use of identification cards. So ID. So each school man, I think each school man gid na siya, private and public, so must be imposed within the or ID must be imposed within the school premises. This is in order for us pod nga ma-safe ang mga bata kung diri ba gid nang eskwela ang mga bata kay if we I know some of you public teachers encountered things like mga gang-gang bitaw, 'di ba? So naay pasay nga magsulong-sulong na sila, 'di ba, sa mga sa mga other schools. So in order for the safety of the students pod, to prevent those things nga mga di maayo or makidnap-kidnap kana mga ngana. So we need identification card kung diri ba yun ang eskwela ang bata or dili, 'di ba? Okay, now waiting sheds. So waiting sheds shall be constructed to protect school children from heavy rains and the heat of the sun while waiting for their parents and vehicles in going home. So needed gud ni siya. So I think man pod ako pong nakita sa bansay namin sila dako pod gyud nga kuan. So mostly naaman sila mga waiting sheds pa to protect pod sa mga students nga moagi kanang sa hallway nila. And then most of the schools pod kay more naam gyud sila yung mga kuan hallway nga or waiting sheds nga mga ano. Okay, so let's proceed to organizing a school disaster management program. So a school safety program must be established in a secure environment with safety conscious individuals, incorporating clear signage for machines, and involving administrators, teachers, students, and parents in the development and implementation of policies, training, and accident prevention measures, while also organizing safety committee and ensuring proper security. So, in a school, there is actually a committee, diba? And in disaster risk committee. So, naagi na siya. Nagi chairman ana, nagi kuan ana, nagi a group ana to for emergency purposes for the safety of our students and the other people, the teachers ana. So the school administrator in coordination with the local disaster coordinating council shall first initiate or formulate sound policies and procedures. Second, assign safety conscious staff members to implement said policies effectively. Third, conduct effective in-service training activities for teachers and community assemblies for parents. And this is important. Diba? Just like what I've told earlier nga, it is really important for the community to help each other. And how will you able to um, rescue or help when it comes to emergencies? So it needs to have a proper training or effective in-service training activities for sa tanan, sa teachers, even sa mga parents. So, fourth one is provide safety training drill exercises for staff and pupil students. So, that is why we, di ba kay, appeal man na to ang country for the sige, earthquake. So, last time we, katong init jud kaayo, di ba? Last time we have our simultaneous earthquake drills, di ba? So, yeah, itong mga safety training drills or exercises. Fifth one is involve parents and adult volunteers in safety campaigns, and then keep a record of pupil accidents, dates, causes, and preventive measures. So, organize safety committee, their theme in different levels such as calamity or disaster and fire control group, safety committee, junior police, MKB Tanod or KD, junior fire marshals, and etc. And also provide responsible security guards through the local government if possible. So please look at the picture. So this is the organizational chart of disaster control group organization. So this is a typical disaster control group organization. So first is the chairman, assistant chairman, disaster operation center, and security, supply, transportation, communication, warning, risk evacuation, relief, medical, and damage control. Okay, so that is a organizational chart, typical organizational chart of a disaster control group organization. Okay, so let's proceed to the school disaster preparedness plan. So, school disaster preparedness plan must have a plan for each specific hazard, identified safe areas with the school campus, evacuation plan, and map. So, this is actually a part naman gini siya sa from what I heard, 'di ba kay we somehow or katong mga public school teachers, you have the kanang yearly improvement plan, IP. Yeah, improvement plan. So you locate where are the areas nga that is dangerous for your students or that is safe for your students, and then you use if there is emergencies, my evacuation plan and maps and etc. So you have the school disaster preparedness plan already. And then now for earthquake safety in schools, so the Department of Education prioritizes reducing seismic risk in schools to prevent injuries and fatalities during the earthquake. So key issues leading to the school building collapses include first error in design and construction. So second is non-application of appropriate technology. And then last one is non-compliance with laws and regulation. Of course, it would actually collapse the building if those things are not or are followed, diba? So let's proceed to effective or the major elements of effective school seismic safety program. So these are the following major elements. First is the seismic safety policy. So the seismic safety policy aims to ensure the safety of the school children and their buildings by setting clear goals and minimum standards for protection. So it requires support from leaders and adequate resources to reduce seismic risk and maintain safety over time. So that is seismic safety policy. And accountability. So another element is accountability. So the accountability element outlines clear roles and responsibilities for everyone involved in earthquake safety programs for schools. ensuring that actions are transparent and well organized. So it also requires qualified professionals to design and assess school facilities to maintain in safety standards effectively. Now, building codes. So building codes and the code enforcement element focuses on creating safety standards for school buildings to protect occupants and reduce damage after earthquakes. And it emphasizes the need for qualified reviews and consistent enforcement of these codes to ensure that all school facilities are designed and constructed safely. Another element is training and qualification. Training and qualification focuses on ensuring that professionals involved in the school building design and construction are properly trained and licensed to guarantee safety. So of course, 'di ba, if lisod pug sa kinsara ang magkuan ang qualified ana. So it should be properly trained and licensed professionals. And training programs will be tailored to local context and will cover important topics like seismic design and best construction practices. Another element is preparedness and planning. So the preparedness and planning focuses on educating students and staff about earthquake risk and safety measures, including creating emergency plans and conducting regular drills. It also involves making school environments safer by securing furniture and establishing procedures for assessing building safety after an earthquake. And sixth one is community awareness. So the community awareness and participation emphasizes the importance of involving in the community in understanding seismic risk and safety of school buildings. So it includes programs to educate the public about earthquake hazards, encourages community involvement in improving safety, and integrates this knowledge into school curricula. Of course, that is why community or as a whole of us, we should know what are the things that we need to do in order to face this emergencies or problems. Okay. Risk reduction for new facilities. So the risk reduction for new facilities focuses on ensuring that the new school buildings are designed to withstand earthquakes by using established safety procedures and guidelines. So this includes creating seismic hazard maps, developing appropriate building codes, training construction professionals, and enforcing regulations to improve safety in schools. Now, last one is risk reduction for existing facilities. The risk reduction element for existing facilities focuses on understanding and addressing the seismic risk of current school buildings by considering community needs and available resources. It involves assessing hazards, creating guidelines for improving safety, prioritizing retrofitting efforts for the most at-risk schools, and monitoring the effectiveness of these actions over time. Okay, those are the elements. Now, let's proceed to the flood safety in schools. Now, flooding is the nation's most common natural disaster, di ba? So, some floods develop slowly during an extended period of rain or in a warning trend followed by a heavy downpour. So, the following are potential damages brought by floods in school. What are these damages? So first one is site damage. So erosion, loss of soil, and accumulation of debris can affect school grounds and access roads. Second one is structural damage. What is this damage? Erosion of foundation can lead to destabilized walls and floors, while saturation can cause mold and material decay. And third, utility damage. So flooding can damage electrical systems, heating, cooling equipment, and sewage systems, leading to contamination. And then fourth one is content damage. What is this? Ang mga school furniture, equipment, and educational materials may be damaged or contaminated. And then fifth one, health threats. So, mold and contaminant pose serious health risks to students and staff. And then school closure. So flooded schools may require temporary or permanent closure depending on the severity of the damage. Now, what are the mitigation strategies? First one is to or improving site drainage. So, regrade sites, enhance storm drains, and consider storm water retention areas. Second one is backup power. So, install fail-safe backup system for pumps during outages. And then, third one is sewer protection. Maintain and repair check valves to prevent sewage backup. And then, fourth one is flood-proofing equipment. Elevate or flood-proof mechanical and electrical equipment. And then, fifth one is, maayo gid nga multi-story ang schools if ever, if pwede. So, relocate critical facilities like libraries to higher floors kay especially libraries there are books, diba? So, dali ra makuan sa flood ang mga books and it will damage talaga the books. Now, school administrators can do many things to recover from damages brought by flood. So these are first natural gas. So if possible, turn off the main gas valve from outside. Do not smoke or use oil, gas lanterns, candles, or torches for lighting inside a flooded or damaged school until you are sure if there is no leaking gas or other flammable material present. When in doubt, call the gas company. Syempre, 'di ba? Especially if katong gikan if nagbaha na gikan, 'di ba? Di pwede nga magkuan-kuan ta diretso kay what if there are kanang na-leak nga mga gas naa tay fire napag gas diretso boom ang kuan na noon schools na noon and then second one is electrical system. So if there is standing water in the building or any sign of electrical damage, call the power company. Do not enter the building until it has been declared safe. Of course, that is really very dangerous if ever manggaling na mga damages nga mga kuan kanang sa electrical or something, di ba? Nabay tubig. Unya, what if pag mo-enter ka dito, di electric shock na noon ka. Okay, now structural damage. So if there are signs of mansori cracking, wall or roof sagging, or other structural distress, have a building professional assess the situation. Okay, for flooded basements should be pumped out gradually. Walls may collapse and floors may buckle if basements are pumped out while the surrounding grounds is still waterlogged. Okay. Office equipment. So if office equipment is damp or wet, turn off the power at the electrical panel, unplug the equipment, and have it checked by a technician. Water and sewage systems. So listen for news reports to determine if the community water supply is safe to drink. If water or sewer pipes are damaged, turn off the main water valve and do not use the toilets. So damaged sewage system are serious health hazards. And then cleaning up. Clean and disinfect everything that got wet. Mud left from flood water can contain sewage and chemicals. Discard all food and supplies that may have come in contact with flood water. Of course. So that is the last actually the subtopic of the unit 3. So in conclusion, so this unit highlights the essential role of well-planned and safe educational facilities in fostering effective teaching and learning while addressing the need for disaster risk reduction and community engagement in basic education. So this is really important for us to know because in the near future, maybe some of us will be administrators. So these are the things that is necessary for your school safe or your if you're constructing a building for another extension of your school or anything. So these are the things that we need to know in order for us to create a school that is safety for all the students because our number one priority even us teachers is our students. So we promote learning. So how will we able to give a lot of knowledge to them if they are not comfortable, 'di ba? How will we able to teach them? How will they able to focus on us on the topic if they are not comfortable within their own classrooms? So especially DepEd is promoting for quality education. So it is not just DepEd but or DepEd schools, but all of the schools. We wanted to have a quality education, and how we're able to give that if our own classroom cannot even have a comfortable or environment for all of the students, 'di ba? So that the important things that we need to remember. So those are the things that we need to remember. So that's it for our Unit 3, Educational Facilities and Basic Education. So thank you for listening at the very end of our topic. So thank you so much. Goodbye, everyone.